This is Cheryl McQueen, designer with Bello's Designs. Today we will be making a fun card with Noof appearing to look through an ornament on the tree. This is a fairly basic card to do. The ornament is the same technique as you use when you're making bubbles. So let's take a look at our supplies that we're going to be using today. We will be using a cardstock. I like to use the Multifarious Smooth and Supreme. I have taken the 7x7 cardstock and cut it to be 4 3/4 by 4 3/4 inches. We will then have a frame for our card, our art card to lay on top of. I just cut a 5" by 5" color cardstock to do that. And then for our base card, I've just taken a piece of cardstock and cut that to be 10.5 inches by 5 1/4 inches and then folded it in half. For our stamps today, we are going to start out by using the Noof stamp. This one is the LAV 725 Noof stamp. For our branches here, we're going to use the fern branch. This one is LAV 578. And then we'll use a sentiment stamp. I'm actually just going to use, I have a set that has some different Christmas sayings on it. I'm going to use the Naughty or Nice. For our inks, we are going to use 3 of the VersaFine Clair. We will use the Nocturne to do our basic stamping in black. For creating our branches to the side, we'll use 2 different greens. We'll use a lighter green, the Green Oasis, and the little bit darker green of Rainforest. For our distress inks today, we will use Candied Apple for our red, and we will use Rustic Wilderness for our green, and then I think I will use another shade of green as well, the Pine Needles, and see if we can add a little bit more depth there. We will also be using the Black Soot for some work on our Noof. We'll also be using a circle stencil. You can do 2 different ones if you would like to choose how you do it. It's the 2.5" circle, and I know it's very, very hard to see with my stencil here being clear. You can either take your circle, the positive, and draw around the outside of it, or you can take your negative and place it down to draw your circle as well. I like to use the negative. I feel like I don't skip quite as much and get a little bit neater circle when I use that one, but it's up to you as to which choice you would like to use. We will also be using a fine tip black pen. This is the one that I've got. It's got a very, very tiny small end. I like that a lot. That's what we'll be using to draw our ornament with. Then we will also be using the Sakura white jelly pen, jelly roll. This will be where we can work on using our white accents on our ball ornament. We will also be using just regular blending brushes to blend our inks together. I'm also going to use the Tim Holtz Distress watercolor pencils. The colors that I'm going to be using will be the Savage Patina, the Picked Raspberry, and the Seedless Preserves. You can also use just regular color pencils. We're going to be using that to try and create some accents to make the ornament look like it's definitely glass and has the shiny effect of that. We can use that straight, or I may even just go ahead and use a little bit of water and a paintbrush to create those, to give them just a little bit more smooth look to them. For coloring in the nose and the eye color on Noof, I like to use just markers, so I've just got a light pink and a light green that we will use to do that with. Again, you can use watercolors or pencils or whatever you like for your accent pieces like that. To put our card together, we'll be using the adhesive running tape, or you can use the Ultra Bond adhesive or any kind of clear glue that will help you to adhere those without having any problems with your glue showing up. I like this one glue because it has a very fine tip on the end of it, so you can get a very small, tiny little stream of glue out. I'll also be using the stamping platform for stamping my designs onto my card. So let's go ahead and get started on working on our card now. So we're going to start out by taking our stamping platform and mounting our piece of multifarious cardstock to it. I have a sticky grid on my platform. This keeps me from having to use magnets. It sticks down everything, and I don't have to worry about moving magnets around or that kind of thing. So I also place pieces of paper around the edges so that I don't get my sticky grid all messed up with ink. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our Noof stamp, and we're going to want to have him looking out from the corner. So probably somewhere around in here. We want him to be looking as if he's kind of peeking around the corner to look through the glass ornament. So I'm going to lay my Noof down right there. And I see a tiny little spot on my stamping platform. I'll make sure that we don't have any ink there that's going to get on our picture. So then we will take our stamp and ink him up. Make sure that we get a good amount on there so we can get a nice, crisp, clean look. Alright, that's one of the things I really like about using a stamping platform, is that if we needed to do a second time in order to get a really clear image, then obviously he will be right back in the same spot. So I'm just going to press down to make sure that we get a nice even pressure all the way around. Get our ink on there nice and even. Alright, let's take a look there. Oh yeah, he looks really good. Alright, and we will remove our Noof from our stamping platform and move on to the leaves of the pine tree. Now what I'm going to want to do for the very first one is have it come across, as you can see in this one, have the branch come across so that we can have something to where it looks like the ornament is hanging. So I'm going to put this one just right there, coming across. I think with this one what I would like to do is go ahead and use the darker green first. So we'll take our dark green, which is the rainforest. Ink up our stamp. That green right there, the dark green. another darker green just right about there. You can also use second generation if you prefer, not to be quite so dark. We'll just gently touch that. And then let's see, maybe let's go ahead and use our light green. So I'm just going to mist my paper towel and wipe down just a little bit of the dark green off of my stamp there. And then we will use the green Oasis. Let's see where we want to have that one. Maybe have it kind of come across like that. Take our green Oasis, ink up our stamp. So that we get just a little bit lighter shade in there. And then we will go ahead and switch to the branch that's just a little bit smaller. And I think I will put, actually, let's do a light one kind of up here, the light green. Up at the top. And maybe just a little bit lighter one coming right in there. And then we'll do one down here that's going to be the darker green again. So I'll take the rainforest and ink it up. Alright. So now we've got what looks like the Christmas tree branches kind of coming across there. And now we can go ahead and remove Noof from our platform and begin some work on the background colors. For that, what we're going to do is we're going to take our Rustic Wilderness green and we're just going to gently brush some of that green color on. To give that just a little hint of the green in the branches. Alright, and then we're going to move on to doing the red of the background, but I've got some ink on my fingers, so I'm going to stop for just a second and go wash my hands because I can already see that I got just a tiny little spot on there and I don't want to do that, so bear with me, I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. I had to learn that I need to be very careful and watch my hands and go wash them if I find that I've got ink on them. Because I've got a tiny little spot, I use this little Tombow sand and rubber eraser. So if I get some little spots on there of ink, I can just take my Tombow and gently erase those little marks so that they don't show up. Alright, so what we were doing is we were putting in a little bit of the light green. I see a little spot up here. I'd like to add just a tiny little bit more to give the little bit of the effect there of the branches. If you would like to, you can also then do a little bit darker color in there, like with the pine needles. And with that, just brush just ever so lightly in a few spots to just give a little bit of the darker shading. Just in a few little spots there. Doesn't show up as much on the camera as it does in person, but you can see a little bit of the two colors, the lighter and the darker, kind of blending together there to give a little bit more depth and shadowing. Alright, so now let's move on to doing the background, which is going to be out of the candied apple. So with this, we're just going to gently, very lightly fill in some red in our background. Have it overlap a little bit with the green if you'd like to, but you don't have to. That just kind of helps them to blend together a little bit. All right. So that's just kind of a quick little background. We don't need to do a whole lot of detail. If you'd like to go darker, you're obviously can do whatever your design look you like, or if you'd like it to be lighter, you can do that as well. We'll darken this up just a little bit. Get a little bit more contrast going there. All right. And so now we are ready to go ahead and put just a little bit of shading in on Noof. Let's see if you can see the red color. It's so hard on the camera to show the color of the inks very clearly. So what I'm going to do with this one is just take the black soot. And I think with this one I may just use my tiny little dauber. I like using these small ones when I'm doing a little bit smaller areas. And I'm just going to gently brush to kind of give a almost gray little bit of shading. Right around here for our Noof, and a little bit up here in his face. I don't want it super dark, but I do want to have that little bit of shading. And we'll go with just a tiny little bit under his chin just to kind of give it some depth. Again, it's kind of hard to see while I'm doing it. Some around his face. A little bit more shading there. All right. Now we'll just go in and add just a little bit of details, and if you'd like to, if you really would like to have even more shaded. You can do some darker, closer to the fur, to the edge part of him, so that it gradually gets just a little bit lighter. So now I'm going to just go ahead and take my markers and fill in a little bit of the detail work. So I like his eyes to be green. So I'm just going to take a little bit of the marker here, green, and fill in his eye color. And then a little bit of the pink for his nose. And we'll put a little bit here in his ears as well. All right. And so that's basically our setup for the inking part that we will do with our Distress ink for the background and with our VersaFine clear inks for the actual stamping of the character and the branches. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to our ornament. So like I said before, I kind of like to use the negative. You can see that. It's so hard to see. But I'm going to place this ornament over Noof's face so that I have got it where I want it to be. Alright, and then I'm going to take my pen, and if you'd like to, I'm always a little nervous about how sturdy things are, stable they are, and so I'm going to just take a little bit of a piece of painter's tape, and I'm going to tape down the edges of my stencil just to make sure that as I'm drawing it doesn't shift. And then I'm going to take this very, very fine tip pen, and I'm just going to draw a very fine circle. When you do a bubble, you would usually use a white, but since this is an ornament, I want it to be a little bit more solid. Alright, then I'm going to go ahead and draw in the top of my ornament, the little cap. If you have an ornament cap stamp, you can use that as well. I've got one somewhere, but I'm just going to go ahead and freehand this in. And then just kind of color it in. You can either color it in solidly or give it a little bit of texture if you'd like. I may end up going ahead and going solid with mine. And then next what you're going to want to do is just draw a little bit of a loop to show that the ornament is hanging on the tree. Alright. I'll give that just a little bit of a curve just at the bottom, just a little bit there. Alright, so now we are to the point where we are ready to make the ornament look like it's a clear gas bulb that he's looking through. For this part, we're going to go ahead and use either a color pencil or the distress watercolor pencils is what I'm going to use, but use whatever you are most comfortable with using. Any of those things will work. I'm going to use these. So I've got a little bit of water here, and I'm going to start out with my picked raspberry. And I'm just going to take a little bit of the color, and what we're going to do is we're going to just do a few little marks on the edge to kind of look like we've got the reflection. And we're just going to do that in a couple of the places. So we can go ahead and do a reflection over on this side. And maybe just a little bit down here at the bottom. All right. Then we'll move on to the blue. And this one is the Savage Patina, so it's kind of a cross between a blue and a tealish color. I'm going to go just a little bit below. See if I can get a good little swatch there. I'm going to actually dry off my paintbrush just a little bit to get a little bit darker color. So as you can see, I'm just kind of doing some little arches kind of around the edge to indicate just a little bit of a reflection that's happening around the edge of our ornament. Having them overlap just a little bit. All right, and then we'll do our final color with a little bit of the seedless preserves. Add just a little bit of a deeper kind of a purple color into it. And this is just to give a little bit of a look of like it's reflecting off the glass, and the light might be reflecting a little bit off of the edge of the bulb. All right, so that gives it a little bit more of the depth that we're looking for instead of just a flat look. Then finally what we want to do, and there are several different things that you can use. You can use the Jelly Roll pen. I also have a white ink that we could use as well to do this. I'll see which one's going to work a little bit better. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw the white reflections in, and these are actually going to kind of cross over a little bit with our colors that we've already done. I may end up having to use that ink. Let's see if I've got something to scribble this on. So if you've got a really good quality white pen that you feel does a nice good dark job, that's actually probably not as dark as I would like. So I'm going to go ahead and use my white ink. So with that, I'm just going to put it a little bit on my paintbrush. It's just a little bit more solid white sometimes than the pen. So with this, you're just kind of, again, trying to follow a little bit of the shape of the curve and give the appearance that it's glass. So whether you use a pen or the ink, like I'm doing here, you're just basically trying to do it's almost like a wedge shape, I guess you would call it, to add this little bit of a reflection. Alright, let's do that one there, and then maybe one right around in here. If you want a lesson on how to make the bubble look, we do have a Talk Crafty to Me, I believe it is, on the Bello's Designs website that teaches you how to do bubbles that obviously can then be translated into doing the glass, like for our ornaments. Okay, now what I am going to do, I think, is go ahead and take just a little bit of that white pen and tone down my black line just a little bit. I still want that line there as a definition of an ornament, whereas with the bubbles you usually don't want to have that dark line. But we do want this to appear a little more substantial than a ball and than a bubble. All right. So now what we want to do is see if we can't get just a teeny tiny little bit of a difference in the coloring to differentiate Noof's body and the fact that he is behind that ornament. So without adding any more ink, I'm going to take my little black dauber here and just very, very gently put just a little bit of shading in. So that it's not exactly the same as the background. And it will hopefully make it then look like he is actually behind something. If we didn't do that, just a little bit of distinguishing, then it would blend into our background and just kind of look flat. But with doing this, it kind of makes it look like he's looking through. It's so hard to show on a video. I will obviously take a picture of the completed project and put it at the end of the video, and hopefully then you can get a much better look at the finished product and how this makes him look like he's behind. All right. And now our final thing that we need to do is to just do our last sentiment. So I'll go ahead and bring my platform back. And then we will take our little sentiment, if I can see where I set it down. There it is. And we're trying to determine, is he being naughty or is he being nice? And we will put that right up there. Make sure I've got it straight. Looks like it's pretty straight. And we will take our black ink. Got a little spot there, we'll wipe that up. And fold over the door and stamp our sentiment. There we go. Alright, so now let's go ahead and get him mounted. The last thing that I always like to do, this is just my preference, you don't have to, I always like to put just a little bit of a distressed frame around the edge to draw the eye in towards the center. It just kind of frames everything. So I'm actually just taking my black soot and just doing a little bit of an edging. I feel like when I do this, it just gives it that final finishing touch. Draws your eye into the center of the card. And so now we will attach him to the card. So I've taken my 5x5 piece there. I'm just going to go ahead and use the crafter's tape. Running tape is a little bit quicker. It dries. It doesn't have a drying time like the others do. So for demonstrating purposes, this is really a nice quick way to finish it off. Now I want to make sure I get it centered so my head may pop in here into the frame for just a moment. Alright, now that's on our frame. And the last step is to attach it to our card. Same process. Alright, and there is our finished card. Thank you so much for watching my video tutorial today. I hope you enjoy making this fun card with Noof looking through the ornament. Remember to check out the delbellosdesigns.com website for more tutorials on the design team page. Have a great day.